majority of us practice low-intensity, day-to-day interactions, almost as if there's a bomb strapped to our chest. And this is something that, if it's unclear, I'll demonstrate right now. So be with me. I'm at the bodega, right? And I say, "Yo, boss, let me get a bacon, egg, and cheese." And you laugh, but this is something that we do every day. I am in this bodega and I'm exchanging as little words as possible and as little time as possible. I don't even know the guy's name. I called him boss. And because we all do this, what we do is that we transform our IRL landscape, so to speak, into one that is utility-based, into one that is based on a tangible exchange. And this is something that has led to the perception that these so-called third spaces, spaces where we linger, are declining. And so to tackle the question of whether or not third spaces are actually declining, it's important to understand the context and what third spaces are. To do this, we're going to rely on Ray Oldenburg's definition of a third space in his 1989 work, The Great Good Places, in which he makes the distinction between first spaces, which is the home, your second space, which is your workspace, and your third space, which is where the magic happens. It is a place for informal public life. It offers a sense of sociability, of connectivity, and a sense of community. And here the operative word is sense. It's perception-based. You get the sense that you are part of a world that is larger than oneself. So our re-examining of third spaces has emerged 6 years after lockdown, after the pandemic. Now we see in online discourse people bemoaning the loss of third spaces and talking about prevalent loneliness. It is a health epidemic, essentially. And there's empirical evidence to support this. Business Insider talks about adults reported time spent with their friends dropped from 6 hours a week to only 4 hours a week. By comparison, the CDC reports that on their phones, adults spend 4.5 hours each day on social media. Other literature from the New York Times, as well as the Week's article, they implicate social media in this decline of third spaces, as well as a culture of convenience, of productivity. Spaces such as coffee shops are often too expensive for the average American to frequent daily, or they implement policies such as time limits. So what that might look like is 20 minutes spent in one space. And of course, in talking about the decline of third spaces, we would be remiss if we didn't tackle the matter of money and how that looks in an online space. So on social media, we're bombarded every day with cool places to hang out. But this is an individual experience. You are paying essentially to experience something by yourself and not with the world around you. And I would wager that in terms of connectivity, you're leaving with a less satisfactory experience than if that space was free. Historically, also, enduring third spaces such as a library or the museum are either underindulged in or transferred to digital spaces. And so people are staying home. And so what we see here is that we are essentially outsourcing a public life to a private space. In any case, in light of a culture that favors productivity over connectivity, and one that is ushered in by stan wars and online delivery services, we emerge with the question of, are third spaces actually disappearing, or is this perception-based? Is loneliness prevailing over the way that we see the world? And the answer is yes and no. Yes, because more adults than ever are spending time at home. And no, because remember those 4.5 hours I mentioned? We can use that to essentially take the power back. So what does that look like? And that's kind of a weird way to apply it, taking the power back. But this is because the literature that emphasizes the benefits of third spaces and the negative implications for its decline in a way affirm the loss of third spaces as if it's this magical thing that can be taken or granted that has nothing to do with the community or oneself. You're essentially, by believing that third spaces are disappearing, you transform the community into something that occupies a space, something that merely consumes the world around them rather than contributes. And so how do we take the power back? We can attribute these 4.5 hours into research. I have the benefit of giving this talk in a major walkable city, and so naturally I am remiss of the circumstances in suburban areas or rural areas. But conversely, you have the benefit of listening to this talk in a walkable major city. And so you have advantages and resources at your disposal. So what this looks like is there are plenty of websites, one of them being www.nyc4free.co/events that offer or expose one to discounted or free events in New York City, as well as at NYC Bucket List that does the same thing. You can also join a free replicable club. And what I mean by replicable is that you can draw on your own resources. If you want to join a running club that already exists, you can do so. You don't necessarily have to buy running shoes to do this, but the idea is that you're not paying over and over again to do the same thing. If all else fails, you can cultivate a community based on your own interests. And in other words, that means creating a club. For instance, if you like to read, make a book club. If you like to knit, do a knitting club. There are also, as Afra stated, these free spaces that you can frequent in New York, such as a library, which is more or less always open, or the museum, or even community gardens, which are often underlooked. And so the idea is that if you're waiting to buy a third space, or if you're waiting for a private entity to provide a public life, then you're going to be waiting for a long time. So the next time you go and you get your bacon, egg, and cheese or your bagel or whatever, maybe try to strike up a conversation with the guy behind the counter. You might learn something. You might learn that his name isn't actually Boss. Thank you.